And Michelle Tuzzi, this is ABC 7 Eyewitness News at 11 o'clock. You are watching live coverage of the 5.1 earthquake that hit this evening.
Yes, that earthquake was felt by many people in Southern California. It's safe to say millions of people, 4 counties at least. It hit at 9:09 p.m. It was a 5.1. Originally it was a 5.4. It was downgraded to a 5.1. And we had another earthquake this evening that was also sizable, felt by a large number of people, a 3.6 that hit at 8:03 p.m., also centered in the La Habra area.
And you are seeing now how it looked on our ABC 7 earthquake cam. This is a representation of the epicenter and where most of the shaking took place and where most of the people seem to have felt the most violent shaking, kind of to the north and mainly to the north of the epicenter. But it was certainly felt, as Michelle mentioned, in a wide area of Southern California. We're hearing about power outages in scattered areas of Southern California. We're hearing about a lot of damage to property, but not to structures. In other words, a lot of things fell off shelves, fell off walls, but no reports yet of any homes being damaged or structures being damaged to the extent that people would have to leave them.
We saw a water main break in Fullerton. We can't say for certain that it was caused by the earthquake, but it is something that is being worked on right now in the Fullerton area. There's also been a hotel evacuation in Brea, an Embassy Suites hotel that has been evacuated. We are trying to get more information on that. We're not sure if that is associated with the earthquake, but we wanted to let you know that that is taking place as well right now, an evacuation at an Embassy Suites. Let's go out to our reporter now in the field, one of many that we have out tonight, Miriam Hernandez. Miriam, tell us where you are and what's happening. You are at USGS.
That's correct. We are at Caltech. We're at the Media Center where some seismologists have been giving us briefings throughout the evening. They're preparing to give us another one. They were able to get a very quick read on the intensity and the location of this quake. It was 1 mile west of La Habra, just south of the Whittier Fault, and it was a 5.1 intensity. That is 10 times, they say, the energy that was released in the Encino Fault on March 17th. 5.1, they say, not something we're used to at this time because we have been in sort of a quake drought. We have not had that many quakes in the recent years of that size. So they say that is not characteristic of California, so it makes that quake even more startling for us. So March 17th, the Santa Monica Mountains quake near Encino, that was a 4.4. Tonight in La Habra, that was the strongest quake we have felt in that area since 2008. The Chino Hills earthquake was 5.4. Scientists say that that tonight's quake may have been on the La Puente Fault. We are going to be getting a briefing from them right now, and we are hearing now from geophysicist Robert Graves and Lucy Jones from USGS.
Just to update the latest information that we have, or just to give a brief recap, 9:09 this evening we had a magnitude 5.1 earthquake. It was 1 mile east of La Habra, about 4 miles north of Fullerton. It occurred at a depth of about 5 miles beneath the surface. It was preceded by a magnitude 3.6 foreshock that occurred at 8:03 p.m. this evening. Up to this time, we've had over 30 aftershocks that we've recorded. 3 of those aftershocks have been greater than magnitude 3. We expect the aftershocks, obviously, to continue throughout the evening. We've had a couple of reports of very minor, not damage per se, but material falling off shelves and so forth. No reports of any structural damage. The intensities of the shaking were fairly strong. Our instrumental intensity right in the epicentral region was up to a level of intensity 7. That's very strong, very noticeable, obviously, and there are a number of reports that people have felt this earthquake. As I said, we expect the aftershocks to continue throughout the evening. There is a small chance that we might have a larger magnitude event. The chances of that decrease with time as we'll go through the evening. Just to point out, this is an area that is near the magnitude 5.4 earthquake that occurred in 2008 in Chino Hills, but it is not. We don't think that there's any association between those two events. That event was much deeper. It occurred at about 10 to 12 miles, and this event tonight is shallower.
Can you tell us anything more about the fault involved in tonight's earthquake and whether it was associated with any other former earthquakes?
Well, as far as specifics on the fault, we don't have definitive information, and it's going to take a while to try to discern that. There are several active faults in that region that have been mapped. If we don't have a rupture that breaks right up to the surface, it takes a little bit of time to do that investigation. As far as previous earthquakes in that area, let me turn it over to Dr. Lucy Jones. She has some information about that.
We're actually going back to the source, Dr. Richter's book, published in 1957. There is a magnitude, well, an earthquake before they had determined the magnitude scale, so he did not assign a magnitude to it. It looks to be a little larger than this one. It had a maximum intensity of 8, and we have a maximum intensity of 7 in this event. Very near the location, he called it the Whittier earthquake, and it happened on July 8th in 1929.
So you believe that's the last time this, whatever fault this is, seismic structure broke, was then?
Well, this is the last time there was an earthquake this large, right in there. But of course, nearby, we have both the Chino Hills earthquake and the Whittier Narrows earthquake in 1987.
How long is this fault?
We don't know how long it is. Wait. It's associated. It's near the Puente Hills thrust. Given that we can't say definitively on any earthquake of this side, we can say there's some association with the Puente Hills thrust, which of course is so if you're asking the question, how big could something near here happen? The answer is very big, but that's also, of course, the same answer of much of Los Angeles.
Right, and you had a pre-shock prior to this one, of an hour and 3 minutes. What are the chances that this is a foreshock to something larger?
Okay, every earthquake has about a 5% chance of being followed by something larger. The fact that this had a foreshock doesn't particularly increase that probability, so still on the order of 5%.
Can you
Any questions that you have about this
earthquake
event?
in 1987 earthquake in Whittier? Can you rule out that that is the same fault line, or are you just not sure?
No, we can absolutely rule it out. For one thing, if you look on the map that we have here, it's a long ways away from the 1987 earthquake, which you can see is up there, sort of in the middle of the figure. And this morning and this evening's is quite far down. So no, it's not the same structure. It's not the same location as 1987. 1929 is the last time we had earthquake in this location.
Yeah, what are the questions you have about this activity, and will you be examining data, or is there anything physically you'll be looking at?
Well, yeah, clearly we have a lot of information that's coming in, a lot of data that we will continue to analyze. Obviously, questions such as can we identify the fault structure? Is that linked up to other faults? Getting an idea of how those faults might be interacting. Those are certainly questions that we'll be looking at. As we had talked about previously, and as Dr. Jones has indicated, the Los Angeles region is crisscrossed by many, many active faults, and it's a very complicated set of geological structures. And so to try to discern exactly what happened when an earthquake occurs 5 miles or 10 miles beneath the surface takes a bit of time. And so we will continue to do that, or continue to work on that, and hopefully come up with some more definitive information.
Are you thinking that
there was an indication that this was the end of the dry spell? You had 20 years of abnormally small seismic activity.
Yeah, well, and I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to say it's the end of the dry spell, but it is certainly something that is typical for the Los Angeles region. And it's part of I would say, the natural cycle. As we had talked about before, this is another reminder. We live in earthquake country in Southern California, and this is an earthquake that is not terribly damaging, but it should be taken to heart that we can have larger, more damaging earthquakes.
I would say March 17th, we said we can't tell for certain if this is the end of the drought. We'll have to wait and see if other things happen.
And that's earlier.
Yeah.